web development. I hope you had a nice weekend, and I really hope and trust you got to tackle the assignment for last week. We are in a brand new week. We will be tackling new things. Just before we begin, let me just address a few issues. Yeah, I understand there are concerns about the new interface for the LMS. Yes, we have gotten your concerns and issues, and they are being addressed, and hopefully they will be sorted by end of day today. So, and also let us just make things clear. This is the web development module. Unfortunately, I am not in any position to address any other issue regarding any other module. I can only comfortably address issues on the web module. So let us make that very, very clear, okay? If you are experiencing an issue on any other module, please get in touch with the respective instructors on that particular module. I hope that is very, very clear. So for the next 1.5 hours, we'll be looking at lists, images, tables, and forms in HTML. How can you actually embed them in your web pages? That is what we will be going through. And then I will give you a chance and opportunity to raise any questions on today's topic. Okay, I hope that is clear. So as usual, we will just be doing this practically. We will be doing this practically. So let us just all open our Visual Studio Code editors so that we can have a look at how do you, not how fast, we can first describe what are lists, what are images, what are tables and forms, and how do you actually embed them on your web pages. Okay, so please open your Visual Studio Code editors. And I made this also very clear last week. Visual Studio Code is the main editor that we use during our trainings. If you have a preferred editor, that is well and good, you are free to use it. But please note, I will not be able to assist you if you are using another code editor. I can only assist you when you are working with Visual Studio Code. I hope that is very, very clear. So we are in week two. So let me just create another folder for week 2. We are in week 2, so we are in week 2. Space, okay. Good. Okay. Change to that. Yeah. Good. So we are in week 2. Let me just open that. Are in week 2. So this particular week, we are going to look at lists. We'll be looking at lists. Images, tables, and forms as part of our introduction into the structure of various web pages. So that is what we will be looking at. So what are lists? What are lists? Lists are simply ways in which you can, sorry, just a minute. So as you go through HTML, you are going to come across various elements that are used to structure and display content on your web pages. And one of those elements is lists. So these four are some of the most essential elements that you will come across: lists, images, tables, and forms. Lists, images, tables, and forms. Let me just increase that size. Lists, images, tables, and forms. Those are very, very crucial elements when it comes to structuring your web pages. So we are going to go in depth and see what are lists, define them, and see how we can embed them in our web pages. So we'll start off with the lists. Lists are simply there to help you organize content by grouping related items. So if you have items that you want to group together, then you can use lists to help you organize them on your web pages. So there are three types of lists that we are going to interact with. And as usual, we are going to do that practically. So on your file explorer, last week we mentioned 3 ways in which you can create a new file. So you can either do file, new file, or you can use this icon to create a new file, and so on and so forth. So let us just create a new file. Let us create a new file and give it the name index.html. Capital index.html. We say the index is the default file. If you are placing your files on a web server, index would be the default file, and that is the file that the browser engine would look for. That is the default file the browser engine would look for when it is displaying your website, unless you instruct it to look for a different file, okay? So that is the default file. So who can remind us just on the chat box, let me just open this up. On the chat box, what is the first line of code that we are supposed to write on our web page? What is the first line of code? Document declaration. Very, very good. Very good. Very nice. The document declaration, that is the first line of code, followed by what? Followed by the root element. Very, very good. Or the HTML element. Very, very nice. And then after the root element, what goes next? The head. Very good. Daniel, Magdalene, Moses, Susan, Francis, Salmon, Janet. Very, very good. Then we have the head section. The head section that contains information about your web page. And here we can put up a title and we can say HTML lists, images, tables. I can do and forms. So we can do that. Okay, very, very nice. Good to see that you are attentive and you remember what we went through last week. And then finally, what other section do we have? The body. Very, very good. The body section, where all content that you want to be displayed will reside in this particular section. So we have the body here. So we are going to start with HTML lists. So I'll simply do a heading. I'll simply do a heading and call my heading HTML lists. So we've said lists are simply there to help you organize content by grouping related items. So I can have a subheading here, maybe H3. H3 will be good. H3 will be good. So we can start with what we refer to as ordered lists. And just as the name suggests, this one displays item in a specific sequence. And the sequence is usually numbered. And the numbering system that you can use can either be numeric or alphabetic or even Roman numerals. So whichever you choose as per your choice, then you can define it here. So how do you define lists? How do you define ordered lists specifically? So we define ordered lists with the tag OL. We define ordered lists with the tag OL. We define ordered list with the tag OL. And each and every list item we define with the tag LI. We define with the tag LI. So let me just close this for now so that we can concentrate. Yeah. So ordered lists are defined with the tag OL, and each item in the list is defined with the tag LI. And this is a normal tag, so it has an opening and a closing tag. It has an opening and a closing tag. So let us list the module. Let us list the module within PLP. You can list the modules within PLP. So you started with software engineering. Started with software engineering. Then we have we are on web development. You also have Python. You also have Python. Sorry. What else? You have database. And last one is startups. Startup building. Startup building. So that is our list. That is our ordered list. That is our ordered list. And by default, ordered lists are numbered. They are usually numbered. Since we have not defined the numbering system, it will pick up the default. And the default is usually 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can save this. We can save this and display it with our live server. Save that and display it with our live server. So as you can see, there we have our ordered list. Those are the modules that we're currently going through in PLP, software engineering, web development, Python, database, and startup building. Okay, so that is how you would do your ordered list. That is how you would define and embed your ordered list. So remember, who can remind us? Who can remind us? What are attributes? What are attributes? Let me see. Let me see. Who remembers what attributes are? What are attributes? What are attributes? What are attributes? Anyone on the chat box? Very quickly, very quickly. Very nice. Add more information about an element or define properties related to the tags. Very, very good. They provide additional information about the different elements or the different tags. Very, 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 very good. That is very nice. So in the event that you want to change the numbering, in the event that you want to change the numbering of your ordered list, then you can use attributes to do that. You can use attributes to do that. For example, let us change this to alphabetical numbering. We can change this to alphabetical numbering. So right on the OL tag, that is the ordered list tag, we are going to use the type attribute. You can use the type attribute, and I can see, because I'm using an IDE, I already have a list of options. So I said we want the alphabetical numbering. So I will do that. Type is A, save my file, and then go back to the browser. Go back to the browser. And as you can see, my lettering has changed to A, B, C, D, E. That is alphabetical numbering. You can do the same for Roman literals if you want. If you want, you can do the same for Roman numerals. As simple as that. So you can use the type attribute to change the numbering type of your ordered list. Or you can even start from a specific number. You can even start from a specific number by defining the start attribute. Now, let us say you want to start from number 5. You want to start from number 5. You can use the start attribute and define and specify that we want to start from number 5. And that is what the browser engine will specifically do. It will simply start from number 5 and then continue incrementing that up to the last list item. Okay, so I hope you've gotten the concept of ordered list. Anytime you want to define, to display items in a specific sequence, then you can use ordered lists. You can use ordered lists on your web pages. You can use ordered lists on your web pages. Okay, I hope that one is very, very clear. Yeah, I have someone asking on the chat, what's the purpose of doc type? Can somebody answer Moses Gitau on the chat box? I think we went through that last week. We went through that last week, the purpose of the doc type. Line number 1, what is the purpose of line number 1? What's the purpose of line number 1? What is the purpose of line number 1? Very, very good, Zainab and Naomi. It identifies and specifies the HTML version that we are using. Very, very good. So Moses, please refer to last week's recordings on the LMS so that you can get to see. We defined all these tags and their purposes. So I will refer you to last week's session for that. Another question that is popping here, I can see people who did not join our class last week. I can see you because we went through all this last week. So how do you run your code? How do you run your code? How do you display your code? We gave almost 3 options, 3 ways in which you can do that. Very good gift. You can press F5, very, very good. You can go to the file explorer, very good. You can go to the file explorer on your local machine, locate where you've created the file, and simply open it. Simply open it. Double click on it, and it will open on your default browser. Or just on the file explorer, remember we installed the live server. We installed the live server extension. So just on the file explorer, right click on the file and open with live server. Open with live server. Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for everyone who has answered that question. So if you are not with us last week, please go through the recorded sessions on the LMS that were provided for last week's session. Okay, so thank you. Thank you so much for those questions, and thank you so much for everyone who is answering. Yeah, you should feel very, very proud of yourself. Yeah, you are getting something and you are retaining the logic, the knowledge. That is very, very commendable. So that was ordered lists. That was ordered lists. That was ordered lists. Next, we are going to see unordered lists. We are going to see an ordered list. So let us do another H3 level heading, and we can do an ordered list. an ordered list. Yeah, an ordered list. And how do you define an ordered list? An ordered list are defined by the tag UL. They are defined by the tag UL. I hope my screen is visible and you can comprehend the code. So unordered lists are defined by the tag UL, and this is a common tag, so it has an opening and a closing tag. It has an opening and a closing tag. UL, this one is used to define an unordered list, an unordered list. So this one, you use it to display items with bullet points. They do not use numbers. So this one uses bullet points. This one uses bullet points. So maybe let us list your instructors. Let us list your instructors. So for software engineering, you had Mr. Chakin. You also had Miss Susan. For web, you have myself. For database, you have Mr. Gerald. And for startup building, you have Miss Nelly. Yeah, I think by now you know all your instructors. So these are the list of instructors. For software engineering, you have those two. For web development, for database, and for startup building. Those are your list of instructors. So you can save your file and go back to the browser. Save your file and go back to the browser, and there you have your list of instructors. And as you can see, these ones do not have numbers on them. They are bulleted. They are bulleted. They are bulleted. I hope you know what we mean by bullet points. I hope you know what we mean by bullet points. This symbol before the item is what we are referring to as a bullet point. I'm sure most of you have gone through word processing software, so you know what bullet points are. So that is how you would define an unordered list. That is how you define an unordered list. And this one also has options that you can specify for it. It also has options that you can specify for it. You can specify the bullet style. You can specify the bullet style. And we use the type attribute as well. So currently we have a round circle. Is it a circle or a disk? So we can do square. Save that and go back to your web page, and you will see your bullet points have changed the shape. So the first one was square. The first one was circle. I'm not sure if it is circle or disk. Let us see the difference. Okay, it is disk. Let me see circle. Okay. Oh, the disk is black. The circle is not filled in with a black color. Okay. So that is how you define an unordered list. I hope we are together. By a show of a thumbs up. On the chat, who has been able to display the two types of lists. Thumbs up. Let me see those thumbs up. Very, very good. Let me see those thumbs up. Very nice. Congratulations. You should be proud of yourself. Let me just post this somewhere. Where can I post this? Let me post this code somewhere so that Everyone can be at par. So there you have it on the chat box. Maybe you can do a question. Somebody can do a question on the Q&A so that I can post the answer code. Yeah, so if you need the code, it's in the Q&A section. So if you have been able to do that, very, very good. Congratulations. That is amazing. Eh? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? You can list your items. You can list your items on a web page as simple as a few lines of code. As simple as a few lines of code. Maybe when you get to a more advanced level, this type, you can even define certain images. You can even define certain images that can be used in place of your bulleted points. But that one you can learn at your own time. That one you can learn at your own time. Ours is just to show you the way. Show you the way, yeah? That is for us to just show you the way. Thank you so much for those thumbs up. I hope everyone has been able to do so. If you need a code, just go to the Q&A. If you need the code, go to the Q&A, look at the last two questions. The code has been pasted there. The code has been pasted there. Yeah, so that is my assignment to you, Cornelius. Go and find out how you can do arrows for the bullet points. That is my assignment to you, Cornelius. Go and find out how you can do bullet points on your web page. Go and find out how you can do bullet points on your web page. Otherwise, we can move on. We can move on. So very, very good. Congratulations. So that is how you can define ordered and unordered lists on your web page, embed them on your web page. Of course, our web pages look very bland and unappealing for now, but you need to get the knowledge of structuring your web pages before we can go a step further on how you can actually beautify them, okay? So let us proceed. There is another type of list. There is another type of list that you may come across when you are developing web pages. And these ones are referred to as definition lists. Definition lists. So this one, this type of lists are used to define terms and their descriptions. They are used to define terms and their descriptions. And to embed definition lists, we use the tag DL. We use the tag DL. We use the tag DL to define definition lists. DL is the tag to use. DL is the tag to use to embed definition lists. And once you've embedded definition list, you have your term, you have your definition term. So for example, you can say HTML. You have your definition term and then the actual definition that is defined by the tag DD. So last week we defined HTML. What is HTML? What is HTML on the chat box? I want to see, what is HTML? What is HTML? Hypertext markup language. Very good, Margaret, Joseph, Cassian, Kutso, Naserian, Felista, Gospel, Montando, Daniel, Sam. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. So this is hypertext markup uh, text markup language. Hypertext markup language. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Let us go to another definition. Which definition? Which other definition can we use? Which other definition can we use? Oh no, not CSS for now. Let us not. Ken Kiragu. What does HDMI stand for? Ken Kiragu. HDMI. Ken Kiragu is saying we use HDMI. Maybe we can restrict our definitions to what we have actually gone through. So maybe SQL. Maybe we can do SQL. Yeah, we can do SQL. Or you can just do your own list. You do not have to follow the teacher. You can do your own list. So this is structured query language. That is structured query language. Yeah, you can add your own. Let me save that. And then I'll go back to the browser. And there you have your definition list. As you can see, it is very well formatted. You have your term, and then to the side, you have your definition. To the side, you have the definition of the term you have specified. You have your definition for the term you have specified. So if you want to list terms and their definition, then a definition list would be the ideal list to use. That would be the ideal list to use. That would be the ideal list to use. Okay? That would be the ideal list to use. Yeah, so once again, if you've been able to do so, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up if you've been able to do so. Very, very nice, very, very nice. Very good, congratulations, congratulations. Yeah, I saw a very interesting question. Let me stop the chat for now. So a very interesting question from Berlin. Do definition lists have types like ordered and unordered lists? Unfortunately, no, they do not have types. But when you get to styling your web pages, then you can define a style for the definition list. You can define a style for the definition list when you get to styling, but no, they do not take up the type attribute. Remember, each and every HTML element has its own different attributes. So if one attribute applies to a particular HTML element, it may not apply to another. Okay, so you need to get that very, very clear. Not all attributes apply to each and every HTML elements. The different elements utilize different types of attributes, okay? I hope that is clear. I hope that one is clear. So DL is for the definition list. DT is for the definition term, and DD is for the definition, the actual definition of your term. That one provides the definition. DT is for the term itself. DT is for the term itself. So I hope that one is clear to everyone. That one is clear to everyone. So very, very good. That is for our first bit. That is for our first bit, the HTML list. HTML list. So we head on to our second section. Second section, we are going to do HTML images. So images add some visual impact to your web pages. Images will add visual impact to your web pages. This is one step closer in styling and beautifying your web pages by use of images, by the use of images. So before we proceed to images, I would want you to access this website. Access this website, pexels.com, pexels.com. Access that website. So this website will offer you free images that you do not need to worry about copyright infringement. And these images are high quality images. They are also high quality images. So access that website, look for any images that you fancy. Just one, we just need one. We just need one image. Just look for any image that you fancy and download it. Any image that you fancy, any image. Any image. So me, I'm a lover of cars. Let me just look for a good car image. Load this one. So download your image, and please make sure it is in the same directory as your web page. So where your image has been downloaded to, please copy that image, copy that image, and place it in the same directory as your web page. So access pexels.com, download any image that you fancy, the one that pleases your eye, and then navigate to where the image has been saved to, copy that image and paste it to your working directory, the directory that also contains your web page. And my advice to you would be to rename that image. Just give it a name, an easy name, a name you can remember, not that long name it has been downloaded with. So once again, thumbs up if you've downloaded an image. Or if you have an image on your local machine, it is still fine. You can still use any image from your local machine. Just please make sure that it is within the same directory as your web page. Make sure it is within the same directory of your web page. I hope that instruction is very clear. Same directory as your web page. Same directory as your web page. Okay? Same directory as your web page. Very good, very good. So we will go back to our Visual Studio Code editor. Go back to our Visual Studio Code editor. And how do you embed an image on a web page? You embed an image on a web page by using the img tag. And this one is a special tag. How did we define these types of tags that do not have a closing tag? How did we define them? Last week, I gave you a name for this self-closing Very good. Poncho, Matobella, very good. Self-closing tags. Another name, there's another name, very good, Janet and Shadrach. And Kuzue, very good, Daniel and Wanda. They are also known as void elements. Very, very nice. So void elements do not have a closing tag, or they are self-closing, okay? So this is how you embed an image on your web page. This is how you embed an image on your web page, and it takes up one very special attribute if you want to embed an image, and that is the source attribute, denoted by SRC. That is the source attribute denoted by SRC. So the source attribute simply specifies the location of the image that you want to display. Okay, this is the location or the URL of, or the URL path of the image that you want to display. And without this, then your image will not be embedded on the web page. So since the image we have downloaded is in the same directory, you can simply specify the image name. You can simply specify the image name. So mine was a car. That is what I renamed my file to. Please use the images on your own local machine, okay? Use the images that you have downloaded or the images that you have copied on your own local machine. Do not use car.jpg and ask me why your image is not displaying, okay? So very important, you have to define and specify an image that is on your own local machine, okay? Next, we have an alternate attribute denoted by ALT. Alternate attribute denoted by ALT. So this is also a very special attribute, and it is used for one specific purpose. It is used for one specific purpose. So it is used for accessibility. It is used for accessibility, in that in the event that your image is not displayed for whatever reason, that is, your image is missing, or there is a network issue and your image cannot be displayed, then this alternate text is the one that will be displayed in place of the image. And usually this is just a short description of the image. I can say, what was my image? I can say, this looks like an Audi, yeah? My image. This looks like an Audi, yes? Yeah, I can say a red Audi. I can give my description of my image as a red Audi, so that in the event that this image is not displayed for whatever reason, then this piece of text will be displayed in its place, and then someone can know. I can say, let me say, image of a red Audi. Yes, that is more descriptive. So then someone can know, then an image of a red Audi should have been displayed here. So that is the purpose of the alt attribute. And in full, it refers to alternate text, alternative or alternate text, okay? And because I know this image is very, very big, we are going to introduce, let us just first see it. Let us see it. So we'll go back to our browser. It is very huge. You can't even see. Zoom out. Zoom out to 25%. That is the only way you can see the image, because it is very large. It is a very large image. It is a very large image. So if you need to modify the size of the image, we are going to introduce two new attributes, and that is the width attribute, and the height attribute. I think we all know what width and height represents. Yes, we all know what width and height represent. Height is vertical, width is horizontal. So here you can define a much more suitable size for this image. So for example, I can do, let me do 350. I think that one would be okay. Let me do 350 by 350, yeah? Let me do 350 by 350. So I can save that and then go back to my browser. Now I can reset this page 100%. It is a bit skewed, so I can do 550. We maintain some aspect ratio. Yeah. Yeah. So this image now I have resized it to 350 to by to 550 by 350. I think you do height by width when you are resizing or defining the size, height by width. So it's 550 by 350. And this is in the default unit of measurement. This is in the default unit of measurement, which is referred to as pixels. I hope I think you've come across that word, pixels. This is a default or a unit of measurement that we use in web development, pixels, pixels, P-I-X-E-L-S, pixels. So this is 550 pixels by 350 pixels. And therefore, that is how you can resize your images in HTML, specifically in HTML. Specifically in HTML. Specifically in HTML. Very nice, very nice. So who has been able to embed an image on their web page successfully? Who has been able to? Very, very good. Congratulations. A round of applause to yourself. Very, very good. Very, very good. Very, very good. Very, very good. Very, very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, if you need to add more than one image, then you use the image tag how many times? The number of times that you want to display your image. The number of times that you want to display your image. So if your image is too large or too small, we have defined two new attributes that you can use to increase or decrease the size of your images. Very good. Very, very, very good. So that is for displaying an image on your own local machine. Remember the source attribute. The source attribute, the definition we gave for this source attribute is it specifies the image location or URL path of the image. So if you do not have an image on your web page, you can simply go back to a website that offers images. You can simply go back to a website that offers images. Where is this? My screen has so many things. You can simply go to a website that offers images, right-click on the image and copy the image address. Right-click on the image and copy the image address. Copy the image address. After copying the image address, just come back to the source attribute and paste that address there. Paste that address there. Let me just use a different image so someone may not so that we might have some doubting Thomases here. Let me do a different image. So someone says, I still downloaded that one. So let me paste this one of the BMW. So this is image of a black MV. Image of a black BMW. So that is my, let me go back to my browser. There I have my updated image, and this one has been gotten from a URL. So this source attribute can take up an internal image that resides within your website directory, or it can also take up an external image that resides outside your website directory on another website, So this is very, very important, the source attribute. Without this, then you cannot be able to embed an image and display it on your web page. So that one is very, very important. Very, very important. Yes, this is very legal. I began by saying Pexels is a website that offers free images. That is what I began by saying. This website called pexels.com is a website that offers free images. You will not get any copyright issues when you use these images from this website. I've said if yours is not showing the image, your source attribute is incorrect. Please make sure the source attribute is very, very correct, whether it's for an internal image within your directory or the external image on another website. So this one needs to be very, very correct and on point. Otherwise, your image will not display. And that is the only reason why the image will not be displayed. Very good. Moses is saying done and dusted, like a boss. Very nice, very nice. Yes, yes. And web photos will only be displayed when you are online. Very good, Shadrach. Yes, that is correct. Very, very good. So that is how you would display and embed images. That is how you would embed and display images on your website. So if you need several images, then you define several image tags, okay? If you need several images, then you define several image tags. So remember, someone has raised a concern here, whether this is legal or not. So remember, using images without permission from the actual creators can bring you some copyright issues. So always use images, one, that are free, or use images that are your own images, or you can use images that are free. Those ones will not bring you any legal issues. If the images have any copyright information from them, then you need to seek permission from the owner of that image before you can actually use it. But do not worry, this website offers free stock and royalty-free images and copyright-free pictures. So if you get any image from here, then you are good to go. You are good to go. Okay? You are good to go. Let me see where this, we post this. Pexels. It is not pixels, it is pexels. The website is Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S, Pexels, Pexels, Pexels.com. So where's the Q&A? Q&A. Yeah, so if you need the code, please post a question on the Q&A so that I can paste it there. Yeah, so that is how you would embed images. That is how you would embed images. Isn't that amazing? How wonderful is that? How wonderful is that? That you can display images on your own web page, as simple as very, very simple line of code. Very, very simple line of code. So that was HTML images. Remember, we are yet to define any form of styling and formatting. So we are just going through the structure. I'm sure your page looks very bland, very out of place, and HTML items are just one after the other. But we'll change that. We will change that step by step, step by step, step by step. We'll be changing that. So those are HTML images. Let us proceed to the next one. HTML tables. HTML tables. HTML tables. Maybe who can give us a description, a definition of a table? How would you define a table? How would you define a table? Or what is it a table used for? What is a table used for? Is a table used for? Thank you, Derek. A collection of rows and columns. A sheet structured in rows and columns. A table consists of rows and columns. Very nice, very nice. Can also be used for organizing data. Very good, very good. All are valid explanations and definitions. Very good. So if you have structured data, and you need to display that structured data, then you can use a table to do so. And you simply organize that data in rows and columns. Yes, it is used to present data. Very good, very good. All are valid definitions of a table, valid definition of a table. So how do we embed a table on a web page? Embedding a table on a web page is as simple as using the table tag. We use the table tag for that purpose. We use the table tag for that purpose to embed a table on your web page. We use the table tag. We use the table tag. So we said a table represents structured data into rows and columns, So rows usually go horizontal and columns go vertical. It is how it is structured. And to define a row in HTML, then we use the tr tag. We use the tr tag, and it simply denotes table row. It simply denotes table row. But before we go to table row, at the top of your table, we have what we refer to as the table head. The table head, that is where your table headers are displayed. The table headers, those are the titles on the top at the top of the table. The table headers. So we have the T head. We have the T head tag denoting table head. And then we can have the row for the table head. We can have a row for the table head. And since it is at the table head, we have that TH for every individual item on the table header, for every individual item on the table header. So we can have name, just do a simple table. We can have name, can have email, and we can have country. Just a simple table. 3 columns should be more than enough. So there you have your table header. It will have the name, the email, and the country. We'll have the name, the email, and the country. We also have a table body. We also have a table body. We also have a table body. And this is for the content of the table itself. Content of the table itself. Next, we need to have a table row for each line item on the table. For each line item on the table. And for the table row, we have TD. TD denoting the table data. TD denoting the table data. And this is for every item within one single row. Every item within one single row. And we need how many? We need 3. Since we have 3 table headers, we need 3. So copy and paste that. And then I can do my name, my email address, and my country. So that is one line item. That is one line item. You need another one, you need to define another table row. You need another one, you need to define another table row with its own set of data, with its own set of data. You can copy and paste that. I'll just do the instructors. I'll do the instructors. So here we have Gerald. Let me copy this so that I don't have to type it all out. So just do the list of instructors. Who else? Let's do 3. Okay. Charles. Okay. So there I have defined my table. I have defined my table. Let me just paste this chat box. It's that chat box. So there we have defined our table. There we have defined our table. So we begin with the table tag. We begin with the table tag. This is the one that embeds a table within your web page. That is the one that embeds a table within your web page. And we have different sections within the table. We have the header, we have a body, we also have a footer. We also have a footer, by the way. You can also do a footer. Table footer. Can also do a footer. That is like it is usually just like a header, but displayed at the bottom. So if you have a very large table and you need someone to see the list of headers at the very bottom, then you can use the T-foot. You can use the T-foot tag for table footer, and you simply can copy that. Usually not different from the table header because they usually display the same type of information or data. So we have those 3 sections. We have those 3 sections: the table head, the table body, and the table footer. Though the footer is not, it really is optional. It really is optional depending on what you are displaying. But if you have a large data set, then it would be advisable to at least have a footer so that someone can see at the very bottom, these are the list of table headers in my table. Okay, so you have those 3 sections. The table header, we said it is the top part of the table and simply lists the different table titles, table header titles. So for us, we have the name, the email, and the country. And to define the table headers, you need a line item. And that is what we are referring to as the table row. The table row. It is the one that runs across from left to the right. It runs across from left to right. So on our table row, we have these three columns, one for the name, another one for the email, and another one for the country. And since these are on the table head, for each of those items, we use the TH. We use the TH tag denoting table head. We use the TH tag denoting table head. That is for the data within the table head or the table footer, because these ones are just basically the same things. It's just that they appear in different sections. Now, for the table body, this is the content of the table. This is the content of the table. This is where your actual data will be displayed. The actual structured data, that is where it will be displayed. So for each line item, you have to define a table row. And for each column item, you need to define it using the TD tag, denoting table data. The TD tag denotes table data. So for each column, you need a table data. So you have your name, you have your email, and you have your country. And for each line item, you need to define a new table row. For each line item, you define a new table row. For each line item, you define a new table row with its own set of table data. So we can save that and go back to our browser. We have our table here, but it is not, we can add a border. We can add a border just to make our table more visible so that it actually looks like a table. So on the table tag, we can add a border attribute. This one is a bit old school because currently we style tables using modern styling techniques. As you can also see, it is actually in red. So this is just for demonstration purposes. And there we have your table with at least borders. So that it looks something like a table. It doesn't look out of place. There you have your table. Just increase the size to that so that it is displayed very, very well. Yeah, so that is how you embed a table. Any question up to that bit? Any question? Before your questions, who has managed to successfully embed a table on their web page? Thumbs up. Very good, very, very good. Done and dusted. Hey, there's a boss here. He's just posting done and dusted. Yeah, very nice, very nice. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I will go through the table again. In case I missed anything. Yeah, if you need the code, just do a quick question on the Q&A. It will be much easier to copy from there. It's the question on the Q&A, and then I can paste the code there. Yeah, it is. I hope it is. It has pasted all of it, or it is cutting somewhere. Yeah, seems it is cutting somewhere. Let me just paste the table then. I'll just paste the table only. It's a long piece of code, so I just paste the table. Even the table is cutting. Yeah, the table is cutting. Let me just remove these two. Try pasting this. Should be now. So you can add as many rows as you like. Again, if you are unable to load your image, we've mentioned what? You need to get the source very, very clear. You need to get the source very, very clear. That one needs to be specific and on point. If it is not, then your image will not be displayed. So I hope that one is clear. The only reason why an image will not be displayed is because the source attribute is missing. The source attribute is missing. So styling the table to increase or decrease its size, that one can only be done on using modern styling practices and techniques. We are still not yet there, so we will pause on that a bit until we get to a section or a topic that we can actually do that. So that one is not for now. That one is not for now. That one is not for now. Okay, so let me just do a recap of tables. Let me do a recap of tables, and then we can go into the final section of forms. And then we call today a day. Yeah? So we said tables are used to represent structured data in rows and columns. That is its purpose, to represent structured data in rows and columns. So to define a table, we use the table tag. We use the table tag to define a table. We use the table tag to define a table. And if you need a border within your table, for now, then you can use the border attribute. You can use the border attribute. It takes a numerical value, and this is just the size of the border, of the line borders, the lines on the border. That is just the size. This represents the size. So a table has different sections. A table has different sections. We have the table head, the table body, and the table foot. So, but we've said the table foot is optional. This table foot is optional, but if you have a large data set and you need to display the list of headers again at the very bottom, then you can use the table foot. The table head is used to display the title of the table, the title headers of the table. This line is what we are referring to as the table head at the very top, the table headers. So that is where we use, that is why we use the table header. So for each item on a table, for each line item on a table, we define that using the table row. We define that using the table row. We define that using the table row, denoted by TR. Define that using the table row denoted by the TR. And since we are on the table header, for each column item on the table header, we use the TH tag. We use the TH tag. And this TH tag, it is specifically used for the table head, or when you want your items to be in bold. If you want your items to be in bold on the table head, then you use the TH. Because a title needs to be prominent. The title needs to be prominent. That is why we are doing TH on each item on the table header. Next section is the body section. Now, this is where the actual data of the table is defined. The actual data of the table is defined here. So you have your table row. Table row, we've said this one is used for each and every line item. Each and every line item. So you have to start with a table row. And inside the table row, we have the table data. Table data is used to define the actual data of the table for each and every column. So we had a name, we had an email, and we had the country. We had the name, the email, and the country. So you would repeat this as many times as possible, depending on the data that you want to display, and you simply make sure that each table data is unique on its own line item. And finally, the optional one, the optional section is the table foot. And we've said this is just a repetition of the table head. The only difference is this one appears at the very bottom of your table. It appears at the very bottom of your table. Okay. Yeah, so that is how you would embed. That is how you would embed. That is how you would embed a table on your web page. I hope that is clear. I hope that one is clear for everyone. That is how you would embed a table on your web page. Nice, nice, nice. So before we go to our final concept, before we go to final concept, Stephen, I've never seen a table with both row heading and the column heading, but it is still possible. It is only that your first item on your row would be the heading for the row. It would be the heading for the row, the first item, if you want a heading for your rows. So let me open the chat for any question for lists, images, and tables before we get into forms. Any question? Any question? Gladys, you need to be more specific. Difference between main and body. I'm not sure how to answer that. You're not yet doing styling, Darlene, so I won't tackle that for now. Orders on the table, you use the border attributes on the table tag, on the opening table tag. So yes, Gloria, it's not a must to use the actual unit of measurement. By default, that one is what is used, pixels. So you do not need to define it when you are defining the size. Yeah, so no need to define that. Then that one is advanced, not here. How do you collapse the double borders? Not here. That one you can do when you will be doing styling. The alt attribute is very, very important. I gave the importance of this attribute. In the event that your image is not displayed, for accessibility purposes, this one is very, very important. You do not want a user accessing your website. I mean, an image is not being displayed and they're not being given a reason, or maybe they're not being given an alternative. So this one is very, very important. Yes, it is a recommended way of defining images. You have to have this because it will give a description of the image so that if your image is missing, at least someone would know there was an image here and it was of a certain item. So this one is very, 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 very important. Yeah, someone is saying how to use caption. Yeah, caption is simply used to describe tables. Captions are simply used to describe tables. You use that with the caption tag, and it comes immediately after the table, opening table tag. So I can say this is instructor information. This is simply used to describe the table. It is simply used to describe a table. The columns are already on the table. The columns are already on the table. If you look at the display, this is a column, the one that is running vertically. That one is known as a column. Yeah, and the one that runs horizontally, that is the row. So, yeah. You cannot have the T-foot as not part of the table border. T-foot is part of the structure of a table. So if you place it outside, it will not be part of the structure. But I've said the T-foot is optional. So if you do not want it there, you do not have to define it. You do not have to define it. Yeah, cell spacing, not now. Cell spacing, not now, Kenneth. Yeah, all those are advanced. We are just doing structure for now. We're just doing the structure of your web pages. The definition release, is there a way I can display the definition beside the title? Yes, there is a way, but again, not for now. That will require modern styling techniques. Okay. Yes, T-foot is optional. T-foot is optional. Yeah, I think the headings are on the same indentation. So I'm not sure I'm getting your question, Peter. Yeah, so I think you've seen how to name the table. You use the caption tag. Yeah. Any other question before I delve into forms? Code language not supported. Need to see a screenshot of that. Show what you've done. Yeah, we say the border, you can adjust it to whatever number, sorry. You can adjust this to whatever number, but this is a very, very old way of bordering tables. Yeah? It's a very, very old way of bordering tables. So when we get to styling your web pages, then you can see a much better way of using borders in table. You see, even my editor has highlighted this in red. Image placement, layouts. Layouts, we'll get to understand more about layouts when we get into styling. With the basic structure of HTML, there's really not much you can do about styling and layouts, okay? I hope that one is very, very clear. For now, we are just looking at the structure. How do things appear on your web pages? How do we place them? How do we arrange them? At the very basic form, how do we arrange those items or elements? So if you want to arrange them very, very well, then you need to bide your time until next week when we'll be getting into styling, so that you can see how you can actually achieve that. Okay, so let us get into forms before we end our session. Let's get into forms before we end our session. Let's get into forms before we end our session. Okay, so yeah, I think that does it for tables. Of course, there are other attributes that you can look at when it comes to tables, such as merging cells, If you want to merge cells, what do you use? I think there's an attribute called column span and row span. The column span and row span, so that yeah, maybe I can add my second name there. Attribute called column span. So you can define the number of times a column will span. So more than once, that is merging two cells, or three or four or five, depending on what you want to achieve. So let me just save that and let us see on our table. So if you can see on my table, I defined the name column to span two cells. So as you can see under it, if you can see under it, I have my two names displayed under one column. So if you want to merge cells, then you can use the column span for columns. For rows, you can use row span. If you want to merge two rows, then you can use row span. You can use row span to merge two rows. You can use row span to merge two rows. Okay, let us get into forms before our time ends for today. So, so we have H1 again, and then HTML forms. HTML forms. So what are forms used for? What are forms used for? In your web pages, the moment you want to collect user information or information from your users, then you can collect this input from forms, HTML forms. And we do that through text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, and so on and so forth, drop-down boxes, and so on and so forth. So if you have ever registered or logged in to any website or online web service, then you have interacted with a form. The place where you place your name, you input your name, your email address, your password, your mobile number, your country, your location, your PO box, any place that you come across and you are interacting with those things or those elements, then you are interacting with a HTML form. And its specific purpose is to collect information. So how do you collect information using form? To embed a form in your web pages, then you use the form tag. We use the form tag. We use the form tag to collect information. And this form tag will take up two important attributes. One is the action, and the other one is the method. One is the action, and the second one is the method. So I'll just give a brief high-level overview of these two attributes because we'll not be interacting with them now. That one will come much later when we will be going through backend development. So the form action attribute, this is simply specifies where the data will be sent to after a form is submitted. So when you see like a registration form, when you press the register button or the submit button, that data you've entered into that form is usually sent somewhere for further processing. So where it is sent to, you define that using the action attribute. So if it is a backend server, that is where you would define here that I want to send this data here for further processing or storage. Okay. Number two is the method attribute. The method attribute. This simply defines how that data will be transmitted, how that data will be handled. Okay. It simply defines how that data will be transmitted. And we'll get to see much later in the course, we'll get to see the different methods in which you can use, the different types in which you can use to specify how your data is transmitted. Okay, so that is a high-level view of those two important attributes. A high-level view. I want to confuse you so much, so just know the definitions of those. We'll get to interact with them much later. So you have embedded your form, and now you need to collect data from your user or information from your user. First things first, you need a way to identify the different inputs that you will be gathering, okay? And that is where a label comes in. I think we all know a label is. I think we know all what a label is. It is just for identification purposes. So this label will take up one important attribute, and that is the for attribute. Excuse me. The for attribute. Now, this for attribute is simply used to identify this label for a specific input. It is to identify this label for a specific input. So, for example, let us do a simple registration form with a name, an email, and a password, and also country. So our first label will be for the name. The first label will be for the name. And for the name, it is usually, we take a text input. We usually take a text input or a text field. We usually use a text input or a text field. So input elements, they usually begin with the input keyword, with the input keyword or an input tag. And this is also a void element. It does not have a closing tag. This is also a void element, does not have a closing tag. And it has a type attribute. So a name is usually in text. A name is usually in text. Next, we need to identify this text field. We need to identify this text field. There is an attribute I mentioned last week for identifying elements. Who can remember what I said? What was the attribute I defined for identifying? Very, very good, Consolata, Daniel, Nehemiah, Wayne, Simon. Very, very nice. It is the ID attribute. And what definition did I give for the ID attribute? What definition did I give for the ID attribute? Anyone? Unique identifier. Thank you, Shadrach. Thank you, Dennis, Stephen. Very, very good. The ID attribute is a unique identifier for an element in your web page. So this is like, we liken this to your national ID or your passport in your country or your student ID card in college or school. So that one uniquely identifies you in that school or in your country or so on and so forth, okay? So that is the purpose of this ID attribute. It uniquely identifies this. So we can give this as name or let me say student name. Student name looks better. Student name. And we also need another attribute. And this is the name attribute. Now, the name attribute usually matches the student attribute. And the purpose of this name attribute, this is the one that identifies this input element when that data is transmitted. So this one identifies it on the web page, and this one identifies it when that data is transmitted. So this one is also very, very important when you are transmitting that data, Another important attribute is the required attribute. And this simply states that this is not an optional field. It needs to be filled in order for this form to be submitted. Okay, this is not optional. It is a required field. It is not optional. It is a required field. So if you need an input field to be filled by the user, then you use the required keyword in order to specify that. So I'll just do a break statement, a line break, maybe two. Can do 2 line breaks. This is a line break. We were on one line, we are simply going to another, and I've done two. So that we can specify the next input field. Maybe we can do a label. We can do an input for gender. We can do an input for gender. So we have a label. Start with the label. Do not forget the 4 attributes. This is for gender. And for the gender input, this one we can do a radio button. So we will begin by the input keyword. followed by the type. And for the type here, we'll specify this is a radio button. We have the ID, and this is gender. We have the name. This is also gender. And for this one, for the radio button, we need another attribute called value. We need another attribute called value. Need another attribute called value. And since we have two genders, we have female. Okay, that input. Then we have the display. This is female. So I can copy this and then just simply change this to male. And then we have our two radio buttons. Can do another line break. Maybe you can see how this is going. Yes, there's our label for name. Did we forget that? Name and gender. Got the sense. We can see that from our web page. Very nice. Moving very nicely. So that is our agenda. We can do so name. We have a radio button. We can have a checkbox. We can have a checkbox, maybe for hobbies. So we can do another label for, I can say this is for hobbies. Is there the content? Then we have input type. For this one, we select checkbox. Name. Is. We have hobbies. We have value. We can do sports. Sports. I can do music. Can do that. Do travel. Line breaks again. Confirm on the browser, everything is in order. Yes, just need a full column here. Yeah. We can do a drop down for country. So for the drop down will not use the input tag. For the drop down, we'll not use the input tag. We'll use another tag. So start with the label as usual. So label, we have country. I forget the 4 attributes. So for the drop down, we are going to use a select. We're going to use a select input. So this one will have name, country, and ID country. And for the options on the drop down, we are going to use the option tag. We're going to use the option tag. So for this one to be default, select country. But for the others, we are going to add an attribute for the value. So we can start with which countries are represented in this class. We can start with Nigeria. So Nigeria. Can do Libya. And can do Rwanda. Okay. Yeah, I think those three options are okay. And finally, maybe a text area for maybe a description, a small description of who you are. Eh? So label for description, say describe self. So if you want to take more than one line of text, then we use the text area. Use the text area tag of the text area element. And simply give this an ID for description and a name description. Put a line break. Okay. So I think my form is done. Describe yourself. Yes, my form is done. Yeah, so these are some of the basic elements that you would find in, we've forgotten a button. Hey, very important. We forgot a button. Hey, that is very important. That is also a very, very important form element. So for the button, you can either do it two ways. You have the button tag. You have the button tag. Or you can use also the input tag. You can also use the input tag and do the type and say button. Then you can add a value attribute. Let me say this is the cancel button. The cancel button.
Hey Eddie, how are you?
Fine.
Yeah, hope you're well. Eric here, just a quick one. Dropped a message on your chat. You're doing a fantastic job. Just dropped a message.
Okay.
Zoom meeting chat, yeah.
Yeah. Let me just wind up, Eric, so that I can hand over. Okay, so I understand there's another meeting slated for 12. So let us just wind up in the next few minutes. Yeah, so this is how you would embed a form. I think I'll share a repository of this. in the class notes and additional resources. So if you miss this, then you can get that additional info there. So on my page, that is how my form would look like. We have a normal text field for the names. You have a normal text field. You have your radio buttons for gender. You have your radio buttons for gender. You have your check boxes for hobbies. If you need to select more than one option, then you use the check boxes. Radio buttons are only used if you want to select one option from a list of options. If you want to select one option, then you use the radio buttons. Check boxes in the event that you want to select more than one option. We also have a drop down. You can select one. You can select one or more options from a list of items using a drop down. If you want more than one line of text, then you can use a text area. You can use a text area. And for the buttons, you can either use the button tag or the input element with a type set as button or submit or reset. Okay, I hope that one is very, very clear. Yeah, so I understand there's another session that needs to happen right now. So I will end this session now. Yes, the class is recorded. Yes, the class is recorded. As I've mentioned, I will copy and paste this code under the additional resources for week 2. I'll just upload them to a repository now and share them in week 2 under additional class resources. But otherwise, the recording will be made available in the next hour once the video completes rendering. Very sorry for rushing you at the very end, but as I've mentioned, there's another session that needs to happen now. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you got to learn something. If you are able to, you can join us in the afternoon session from 2 p.m. or in the evening session from 6:30 p.m. We'll still be going through the same things, but maybe you missed something, but you feel free to join us then. So allow me to end the session and relinquish this to the next session that is happening now. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a good afternoon and a good day.